great to be here. I think we're going to have to charge some sort of royalty for the ecosystem terminology. I think I remember when Sue and I became the management team back in June of last year. In our first conference call, we used the word ecosystem about 13 times. And I think now that we really looked it up and tried to define it and really understood why we're referring to the internet landscape as ecosystem, you can start to appreciate the fact that all ecosystems need sort of air and food and water and dependencies and codependencies and competition and cooperation, all things that I think are becoming extremely relevant in today's discussion. And I personally can't be more excited with Randall's theme this year. I think that our industry is at a cusp of multiple transformations, and maybe I'll spend a few minutes talking about that. It's hard to believe that it's only been 13 years ago since Yahoo started, and I think the journey has been anything but sort of boring, and I think we are on the cusp of something more interesting as we go forward. But if you look at some of the dreams and the hopes we had when we started the company in terms of someday dreaming at the time in 1995 that the internet would be a mainstream media and that the advertising business would be a bona fide advertising business. We went through the dot-com bust, and I remember being in sales calls in 1999 and 2000 during that time where it seemed like nothing could go wrong, but in the back of your head you realized that something more sustainable had to be built. And over the last 5 or 7, 6 years, I think we're starting to see the industry really come together, both as part of the media industry, but also an advertising business that's supplemented by technology. We're going to spend a lot of time, I think, talking about the role of technology in the media and advertising business. But the word ecosystem has always been something on top of my mind, and it's been something that I think, from a geek tech perspective, it's always been something that we use in describing ways in which the industries get built, especially with the technology foundation. And there's really a couple of areas. One is, obviously, we're starting to really push on openness, and everybody's talking about creating the platforms and developer platforms for opening up their network. Imagining that someday soon we'll be opening up Yahoo. We alluded to that during our CES speech when we showed up an open mail platform, as well as our open platform for developers on the mobile platform. These are all things that I think when you start putting it all together, you'll see the power of openness and ability to have third parties and publishers really join together to create a unique user experience. The other thing that we're doing on the user side is really tapping the social aspect, and I think while the social phenomenon has really been growing already for the last couple of years, we think it's still just at the beginning. We think our ability to really understand what social graphs mean and how they can be implemented through a Yahoo experience, we're starting to really focus on that, and I think there's a lot of good work to be done there. So on the one hand of our ecosystem, we really do think that there is tremendous amount more innovation, tremendous amount more activation that we can do for our users. Not only to use Yahoo the way they understood it and enjoyed it for all these years, but really encourage even new and deeper and more engaged behavior. On the other side, which we'll spend a lot of time talking about, is the advertising monetization side. And that's one that I think is going through the most change. We are talking about ad networks, we're talking about agency relationships, we're talking about publisher relationships, we're talking about how all this is changing and migrating into a brave new world. But to me, it's got a lot of the same characteristics. It's still about relevance. It's still about creating both an advertiser and a user experience that is flawless and frictionless. And it's ultimately about relationships and creativity in my mind. A lot of people have asked Yahoo about our role in creating relationships with the top branded advertisers and agencies, and that's been our core business all along. We're leaders in that. We intend to continue to lead in that position. But we also have to continue to elevate, I think, the industry's dialogue around what it means to create relationships with creatives in a world where also there's tremendous amount of fragmentation, technology, tools, and ability for us to make the process easier. So with the audience and with the advertising platforms, we're undertaking a platform strategy. It is not a secret that I think in order to power both of these aspects of the ecosystem, we need an underlying platform and a strategy that is much more like a platform strategy, which involves openness, which involves partners, which involves third parties to really be able to use our tools as easily as we use it ourselves. And this is why I think it's an interesting time and a critical time for companies like ours, but also IAB, to really be focused on this issue. And I think IAB's leadership in this area has been really important over the last 3 or 4 years. You can just see this type of gathering being the key places in which we have the dialogue, we talk about issues. Whereas I don't think we did that as much in the first 7 or 8 years of our industry. And I think this sort of coming together and really defining the standards, really defining the way in which we all can grow the marketplace together, that's the real work for this group. And I really do think that IAB has not only important issues today, but really defining where we go going forward. Yahoo has played a leadership role throughout the period in which IAB has been around, and certainly we continue to hope that we can continue to provide the kind of dialogue, the kind of input, the kind of support that we can for IAB. And I want to applaud Randall for the theme this year, and I do think that this is something that we'll look back on over the next few years and say, wow, geez, that was one conference, that was one meeting that we really got all the interesting issues on the table. Before I move on, I just wanted to introduce Sue, who is also going to talk about our advertising strategy. I would say that Sue and I have had this very interesting dialogue over the last 2 years as we were investing in building out our search platform for our advertising. We started to talk and dream about what happens after launching Panama, which was a very interesting dialogue because we were starting to see the world change in a way that was very different, both in terms of what's happening on the display business and the branding business. And over the last couple of years, Sue has really architected, I think, the Yahoo strategy around our involvement in the ad network business, as well as our ability to start creating really neat, differentiating features, tools, and platforms for our agencies, partners, and advertisers and publishers. So with that, I'd like to invite Sue on stage and give her thoughts. Thank you.
Absolutely great to be here, and I share Jerry's excitement at representing Yahoo here. And there's so many former colleagues and friends and partners and customers in the audience, so just great to be here. I'm just going to spend a few minutes before we all sit down and get into the fireside chat portion of this and talk to you a little bit about what Yahoo's been thinking about on the marketing side. As the largest publisher on the web, we are very aware of the challenges that face the online advertising industry today. And I can assure you we're intensely focused on how to make the process simpler, not just for those of you engaging with Yahoo, but for everyone engaging with each other. And that's why we think this ecosystem theme is such an important one, that really talks about how we each build off the strengths of one another to create something more powerful. At the same time, Yahoo recognizes that because of the way the web and advertising has developed, it has become highly complex and requires a platform underneath it that recognizes that power and that is flexible and that is scalable across the industry. That's the only way we're going to collectively be able to decrease the friction and the complexities out of the online advertising process. So with that in mind, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about something we're really excited about, and that is that behind the scenes, as Jerry mentioned, a lot of the headlines were on Panama. We've been thinking about and now are building a really cutting-edge ad platform that runs across all formats, whether it's search, display, video. It is capable of harnessing the power of Yahoo. It's capable of harnessing the power off Yahoo. It ultimately will take advantage of new emerging formats like mobile, all in one easy to use system. So we are, in a word, I guess in a phrase, we're trying to